This episode of the Recovery Couch is brought to you by Greg Swartz at Remax Victory and Affiliates. If you're looking to buy or sell a home, Greg brings heart, hustle, and honesty to every deal. Call Greg at 937-477-8975 today and tell him the Recovery Couch sent you. Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Recovery Couch. I'm your host, Brandon Couch. And today we're going to have a discussion about what is it that we're really looking for in the recovery world. There's an issue of dealing with sobriety, and then there's a heart issue of finding out where we're wounded and why we continue to act and react in certain ways. For this conversation, I'm going to use Randy Creamer's True Profile. You can get that at the Growth Institute, www.thegrowth-institute.org. That's www.thegrowth-institute.org. In the True Profile, Randy Creamer writes, self-knowledge precedes self-care. In other words, if you don't understand yourself, you're going to keep hurting yourself. So how do we actually begin to understand ourselves? First, you slow down and you ask yourself better questions. As opposed to, why is everyone always against me? You can ask yourself, what is it about this moment that just set me off? What was I feeling right before I reacted to what set me off? Or what did this moment remind me of from my past? Because the truth is that most reactions aren't about what's happening right now. They're about what happened to you at some point in time. So to understand this on a deeper level, we need to understand that anger isn't usually the real issue in any of our reactions. Quite frankly, anger is usually some sort of hurt or fear or embarrassment or a feeling of disrespect or a feeling of being unwanted disguised as anger. So when we blow up or we shut down or we act like we don't care, that's the point in time where we need to ask ourselves, what am I protecting right now? Understanding ourselves also means noticing patterns. Patterns like, who do I react to the strongest? Patterns like, when do I feel disrespected the fastest? Patterns like, what situations make me feel small or unsafe? Because patterns point to wounds. And here's the key. A wound explains behavior, but it does not excuse behavior. Once we see it, the wound, then we can stop letting that wound control us. We can stop letting that wound allow us to react to certain people, to certain places, and to certain things, known in the AA circle as triggers. So let's make this real for you. For a long time, I told myself I didn't care about anybody. I was hard, I was guarded, I was closed off. I wouldn't let people in, especially when it came to my feelings. But something wasn't adding up, especially when I started the healing process. I would act selfish with my money, with my emotions. But the moment I got locked up, that changed. I shared my food. I showed loyalty, which forced me to ask myself, if I really don't care, then why does that disappear when everything is stripped away? And after doing the work, the truth became simple. I wasn't cold-hearted, but I was protecting myself, my image. I learned early on that being tough felt safer than being honest. I grew up in a small town where you fought for your respect. From that point forward, that was the only way I thought you got love or respect or validation. I thought that needing people made me weak. I thought that self-sufficient was the only way to be perceived as strong. And once I understood that I had a choice, that I could either keep letting my past define my future, or I could just take responsibility for how I reacted to the triggers that seemingly reopened my wounds. And that choice, it changed everything for me. You see, it's impossible for us to understand ourselves if we're lying to ourselves. I'm going to say it again. It's impossible for us to understand ourselves if we're lying to ourselves. That doesn't mean that we blame our past. When we go back and look at the wounding and we start to discover that we were wounded in certain areas, that doesn't mean that we can place blame and be a victim to the past, but it does mean that we can be honest about it. So let's ask ourselves, what did I not get when I was growing up that I needed? Attention, affection, love. What did I learn about strength and survival when I was growing up that maybe was distorted or not accurate? For me, it meant being tough. And who taught me all that? Who taught me that being tough was safer than being honest? We didn't choose our story. We had no say in the matter, but we can choose what happens next. You see, when we understand ourselves, we can learn how to pause instead of reacting whenever we're triggered. We can choose respect over retaliation. We can choose forgiveness over retaliation. We can stop proving that we're tough, which allows us to start becoming strong, silently strong. And that's why people say self-knowledge precedes self-care. Because once you know why you're hurt, then you can stop hurting yourself. So here's an interactive question. If you're listening, pause and think, what is one situation that almost always gets a reaction out of me? And what feeling do you think is underneath that reaction? I hope and I pray that a situation came to you as you took a pause, and if you were able to find a reaction, then you just unlocked awareness. And that's where change starts. Next, I want to tell you something that might surprise you. You are loved. You are loved by God, who forgives your mistakes and loves you unconditionally. You are loved by your family, even if they don't always show it the way you want. And you are loved by me and those who show up to talk truth into your life. Sometimes with love, it doesn't always feel good. It doesn't always feel the way we want it to. Because sometimes love looks like accountability. Sometimes love looks like higher expectations. Sometimes love challenges you to become more than you believe you can. I care about you enough to be honest. This world is not going to feel sorry for you. This world's going to expect you to follow the rules. This world's going to expect you to pay your dues and your bills. And this world's going to expect you to act responsibly. And if you don't, there will be consequences. So with all that being said, the real question isn't, why doesn't anyone understand me? The real question should be, am I willing to understand myself? Because once you understand why you act the way you do, then, and only then, you can choose to act differently. And that is where real freedom starts. This episode of The Recovery Couch is brought to you by JB Davis at South Dayton Toyota. For integrity, service, and unbeatable deals, call JB and his team at 513-267-5225 and tell them The Recovery Couch sent you.